Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. This is part 1 of 3 of our webinar series, Unlocking New Revenue Streams, the Convergence of IT and Telecom. Your presenters are Brent Reeves from CereTax, Usman Zahoor from Rev.io, and Brian Greer from TaxConnex. And today they'll be discussing why MSPs should be expanding into telecom. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. All your lines are on mute and will remain on mute throughout the webinar. As a reminder, this webinar is not eligible for CPE credit. A recording of the webinar will be emailed out later, but if you can find the slides in the handout portion of the GoToWebinar panel, you can download those there. If you have any questions, please submit those in the questions box as we go along. We'll do our best to get to all of those, but if there's anything we feel should be answered in private or we can't get to everything, we'll follow up with you afterwards via email. Thanks again for joining us, and with that, I will pass it over to Brent.
Okay, thanks a lot, Kate. My name is Brent Reeves. As mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CCO of CereTax. CereTax is the tax automation solution. We integrate with Rev.io and also work very closely with Brian Greer and his team at TaxConnex to kind of take the guesswork out of the process to help make sure that if you do elect to enter into the space, the carrier space, that we can kind of connect you from end to end with a solution to make sure we kind of handle all those kind of intricate details to make sure you're compliant with the rules and regulations that you need to do. So that's kind of the role we play. Excited to be here. Thank you very much for the opportunity, by the way, guys.
Thanks, Brent. Hey, everyone. My name's Usman Zahoor. I'm the Vice President of Channel and Community over here at Rev.io. As Brent mentioned, we do integrate with the CereTax platform, and really we've been a leader in the communications billing space for the past 20 years. We really have a nice automated platform to help service providers that want to get in this world take care of some of the operational challenges that typically come with it, things such as usage-based billing, automation of communications, taxes and surcharges, and of course, white label invoice creation as well. Really excited to be speaking with you. This topic is really near and dear to my heart. I've been working with MSPs over the past 6 years on helping them get into this space, and we're excited to share some cool stuff with you today. Brian, over to you.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm Brian Greer. I'm one of the partners here at TaxConnex. And as both these guys mentioned previously, we work very closely together. It's kind of like 3 legs of the stool. We've got, the billing solution from a Rev.io perspective. We've got the integrated tax calculation solution with CereTax. And then what TaxConnex does is take all of that tax data and information and file the various tax returns and regulatory reports for you. So I think, Brent, you mentioned it initially. It's a integrated solution to really kind of take you from beginning to end from a billing, tax calc, filing perspective. So with that, I thought I would kind of introduce this series and give you a little bit of flavor to the 3 different webinars. Obviously, we're in the first webinar here today. We've got 2 more coming up in the series, but really the idea and the genesis for this is that each of us we work with various MSPs, and it's probably not, at least on my side, not a week goes by without having at least one conversation. Usman and Brent, it's probably maybe a little bit more frequent for you. But these businesses oftentimes, they're kind of operating, I guess, on the periphery from a telecom perspective. Maybe they're referring their clients to different telecom providers for the recurring voice over IP service, or maybe they're acting as a commission sales agent to sell that service, but they're not necessarily getting the benefits of being the telecom provider and owning that revenue and also owning that relationship. So we want to talk about that a little bit, and that's really going to be kind of the focus of this first webinar today, is the value behind owning that revenue stream and taking on that opportunity. At the same time, when we're having these conversations where companies are considering getting into this market, there's a lot of questions and a lot of issues around, well, how do I do it, and what do I do, and I'm not set up to build this, and aren't there a lot of taxes and aren't there a lot of fees and it's just super complicated. So the second webinar, we really want to hopefully simplify, what can often be a very complex process and kind of give you a pathway that says, yeah, you know what, this really isn't as painful and as difficult as I thought it could be. And then the final piece of the puzzle here in terms of the third webinar, we want to talk to you guys about, how do we now take this to market and maybe give you some advice and tools in terms of how can you market this and sell it to your existing customers, and how do you go out and find new business. So really excited that, we get the opportunity, I think, to talk to you guys about getting into the market, managing the process, but also, how to sell it and support it. So Usman, I'll turn it over to you here for the next piece of it.
Awesome, thank you, Brian. I always like to start with statistics and really painting a picture of the why, and I think the numbers really kind of speak for themselves. The UCaaS space, the VoIP space, we've been seeing it internally. A lot of our clients are obviously in this world. We've seen over the past few years a lot of MSPs getting into this world as well, and the real reason is it's a massive market, massive opportunity for service providers. I've got a little number down there in the bottom left. The UCaaS market itself is projected to hit $210 billion in the US alone by 2028. That was a study done by Fortune Business Insights, compared to 2021, where it was only at 47.6 billion. So the market is projected to grow quite significantly over the next few years. I think we all kind of saw that ever since COVID, with the work from home, remote working initiatives that kind of happened during that period with everyone being locked down. That was a big highlighting point, right? Where UCaaS brings the ability for employees, for organizations to still continue to operate. And even now, we're seeing a lot of back to return to office type of initiatives with a lot of organizations. But UCaaS isn't going anywhere. A lot of organizations have realized that being able to connect digitally is so powerful. Compared to having to fly down to a prospect or fly down to a partner, you can do all those things virtually now. So the UCaaS market is blowing up. It has been over the past few years. We've been seeing that firsthand. There's right now, the FCC data shows that there's 64 million VoIP subscriptions as of 2023. I'm sure that number has increased significantly since then. And if you look at it compared to 2013, it was 45 million. So there's a lot of growth that's happening. With Rev.io, we've been noticing a lot of managed service providers. Traditionally, we work with a lot of telecommunications companies that had these complex billing challenges, but over the past few years, really ever since COVID, we've been seeing a lot of managed service providers that are already offering, managing those networks, offering cybersecurity solutions. They're kind of in the perfect place to take advantage of this opportunity. And we've been seeing internally that quite a bit. There's some of our partners, some of our managed service providers that are really embracing this change, really embracing this convergence that's been happening, and they've been growing like crazy. Others that have been a little bit more hesitant, we've definitely seen less growth in those areas. So overall, I think this is a massive opportunity for a service provider that's already working with small, medium-sized, even enterprise businesses these days are working with MSPs quite a bit. And as we know, recurring revenue is the name of the game, and UCaaS and VoIP in particular presents a fantastic recurring revenue opportunity for service providers.
Yeah, Usman, I'd kind of echo what you described there in terms of, the MSPs, and I referenced it on kind of the lead-in in terms of they've already got the customer base, right? So why not take advantage of this recurring revenue opportunity rather than refer that out or simply take the commission on it? And I know you've got some statistics here later on that we'll get into in terms of, what those percentages are that I think will be pretty interesting to the group.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for MSPs, so again, I think this is an area that MSPs should definitely be getting into. We're seeing really two and we've kind of alluded to this in the past few slides, but we're really seeing two main market entry paths. One is kind of what I call it the path of least resistance, which is the agent type model where you can establish a relationship with the provider that really owns the end customer relationship, and you're more so just filling in that technology gap there, which is, don't get me wrong, a good way to start out, especially if you're new to this space. But the other much more profitable market entry path here is really the white label model, and we'll talk about both of those in the next few slides. As far as offerings go, we've kind of listed some of those at the bottom there. VoIP and UCaaS being kind of the no-brainers and the ones with really high margins. We've been seeing Microsoft Teams over the past few years grow quite significantly as well. I think the logo that we've got on there is probably outdated. We should update that. But Microsoft Teams is popular. Just about every business is using Microsoft for those solutions, and even Teams has a lot of capabilities to add in dial plans and really connect to the public telephone network. Zoom phone, we've got that as well, of course. And some of the other things that we're seeing more and more lately is things like mobility, IoT services, internet services, SD-WAN. Brent and Brian, I'm sure you'd agree, all these areas, all these different service offerings are potential revenue streams for MSPs and ways that you can, enhance your service portfolio.
Yeah, and another aspect, I know we're kind of focused on the MSP market, and I don't know to what extent we have what might be considered, or people who might think they're more of let's say a pure SaaS type of business, but we're also seeing these SaaS businesses that are like inadvertently getting into this telecom space through some of this IoT that you're describing here, Usman. So I think there's some applicability even outside of the direct MSP market.
Another thing I guess I'll add really quickly is we're seeing this the other way around as well, where a lot of communication providers or traditional telecom providers are also seeing the opportunity on the MSP side, where they are also looking for additional revenue streams. They want to get into the managed service world. So it's really one of those things where not only is it an additional revenue stream, but just to protect your business, it's very worthwhile for an MSP to consider getting into this world, because as more and more communications providers take on additional MSP functionality, now you're competing with telecom companies, you're competing with other MSPs as well, and to be able to offer a one-stop shop solution to your clients really goes a long way in this competitive landscape.
Yeah, I'll kind of piggyback on that too. What we're seeing when we talk to a lot of the MSPs, especially those that are on the agent model, is that kind of how do I build a moat around what am I doing? How do I build a moat around my customer base? So a lot of times when they're coming to us, they're investigating this, they're seeing what they can do. They're talking to AT&T or someone like that, and of course they're wanting to understand what they have. But the real driver, obviously business valuation, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but it's a lot of that stickiness. And then I'm glad you put that service offerings kind of slide up there, Usman, because we just got back from Barcelona last week. We were at the Mobile World Congress, and a lot of the mobility products and IoT products that we saw there were just incredible. I mean, we see a lot of things. We think we see a lot of things, and when we were there, it was amazing. And almost all of these were white label offerings. Like a lot of these were like, hey, we provide these new IoT services that are AI driven or whatever else. And I mean, it was incredible. But almost every time we would stop at a booth or talk to somebody, they had some sort of white label offering. And so, of course, my mind is just spinning around as far as, wow, if an MSP could offer some of these services to their existing client base, I mean, that would be cutting edge. It would also create a massive barrier to competition for them to be able to come in. So yeah, it's not only exploding space, but it's just a really interesting space. So yeah, good points.
Awesome. Well, I guess I mentioned, there's really two market entry paths. And again, this is kind of the path of least resistant, that traditional commission model, which is a lot easier to set up. It's a lot easier to get into the space this way. The two big downsides that we really see with the traditional commission model, even though you don't have to worry about billing and compliance, from a profitability point of view, margins are significantly lower. 15-20% margin on those services, which compared to some managed services that you're providing sound probably really good. But when we look at the next few slides, as far as the white label opportunities, it's definitely all lower. And not only are the margins lower, but you also have a lot less control over your brand, over having that direct end customer relationship. In my experience working with MSPs that have gone down this path, the common thing that I hear is, we're an agent for carrier XYZ, we're providing the solution to our clients that way, we're making a little bit of margin, but we still end up having to do all the support. So when there's support issues, when there's support calls, the end customer isn't going to call up the provider. They're going to call up the MSP to solve those challenges, to solve those network problems. So MSPs that are taking this approach are having a lot of that operational burden from a support point of view anyways, with the downsides of not being able to make as much as they could on the white label model. Brent, I'm sure you're seeing similar things.
Yeah, absolutely. But the also part of it too is that there's no perception or perceived, difficulty in replacing that MSP either, right? So, I mean, it's kind of saying the same thing we said in the last slide, but it's that building the moat. But it's the same thing. If you don't own those assets, and you're not, you're not the name on the bill, the perception of, okay, well, I can just replace this person. I'm not going to replace the provider of these services, right? I'm just replacing my MSP. So there's that as well. But yeah, the support obviously never goes away, right? So whether you own it, whether you're benefiting from the being able to control your margin, right, and adjust the margin, both adjust the competition, but then also just adjust when you are adding value services to raise your margin. Yeah, without owning that, you're kind of, those are definitely some down, some issues that you've got.
Guys, on these commission-based models, do you see that 15 to 25%? Is that a recurring commission payment, from the upstream carrier? Or is that kind of a one-time deal? It sounds like it's probably more of a recurring commission payment.
It is, but they can also tier, right? So they're sometimes higher at the beginning, they scale down lower, and then again, because as Usman mentioned earlier, you're not really controlling the margin. Like if someone else starts cutting prices or cutting margins, there's not much you can do about it, right? I mean, you either decide, hey, yeah, I'm going to take this lower margin, or I'm going to do nothing. So a lot of times margins will start higher, or commissions rather will start higher, reduce, even if they are recurring, and sometimes they'll phase out too, right? So there might be a 2-3 year recurring model, but after that, your commission either goes to a much smaller amount or not at all.
Gotcha.
So
Makes sense.
We've got an interesting case study at the end that really drives that point home. But typically there's caps on that as well. All right, there's caps on commissions. There's a ceiling in terms of how much you can actually make in this model that case study at the end will highlight. But yeah.
Cool.
Now, obviously, the white label provider model, again, can be operationally difficult to set up, but that's why we're here, and we've got all the tools and partners in place to make that process easier. And from a benefit point of view, that's where you really start to see those 40, 65%, sometimes 80% margins, where you can really make a lot more money. You can own that end customer relationship, capture a lot more of that revenue as well. And really from an end customer point of view, you are their provider in that scenario. You're the one that the invoice, when it's going out to the end customer, it's got your logo on it. We've touched on some of these things already, but really strengthening that relationship to the end customer, building that moat. I like that term, Brent. I'm going to steal that. Establishing that loyalty to the client.
Yeah, and again, to kind of continue on that mode, what we do see especially when we talk to MSPs, is that they do a great job of servicing their customers, right? Most of them come, from a small business background or who are, they just live that world dedicated to their customers. They're the ones that answer the phone late at night, whether that's good or bad or indifferent, right? But they also kind of, because they're adding that service and because they're having that, they know their customers. They know what their customers should be spending. They know how much they can spend. They know what their opportunities are. So really, when you're on that agent model, yeah, maybe you could say, hey, my customer will pay 10 or 20% more than this because I'm adding these other services right to them, and I'm adding these other areas of value. When you're on an agent model, it doesn't matter. You're not benefiting from that ability. When you're on a white label model and okay, on this service I can charge more, and increase my margin over here. Maybe I got to discount my margin over here on this part of the service because it's more of a commodity. But over here, because of the quality that I add to the engagement, I can increase my margin over there. Again, that's something you can only do in a white label model. You can't do that in an agent model. Doesn't matter, what the end price is and how much they're willing to spend. Your margin, your commission is going to be the same. So. Sorry, Brian,
Trying to get there, guys.
With the slide navigation.
Yeah. You left
fair,
it up to the wrong guy, but we got there.
That's all right.
I think this slide here really is
Sorry, Usman, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that this slide is another huge point to make, right, from a business valuation point of view. And Brian and Brent, I know you guys have tons of experience in this area, so I'll kind of let you touch on some of these items here.
Yeah, I'll take this first one. Sorry, Brent. Yeah, in terms of the valuations, and you're going to see valuations that are typically based on one of two things, right? It's going to be either a revenue valuation or an EBITDA valuation, and the revenue valuation tends to be more for businesses that are in extremely high growth. So if you think about maybe new businesses that are very, very fast growth, but maybe not have a significant amount of margin, those businesses are going to be typically based on the value on a revenue multiple. But I think a lot of what we're talking about here is really adding a bigger margin, this 80%, 60% margin to provide the white label service here is really going to boost that EBITDA. And if you're not in a super high growth mode, and I say super high growth, I'd say you have to be at least 30, 40, 50% year over year growth to really even be considered on a revenue multiple. Otherwise, your business is going to be based on a multiple of EBITDA. And if you can boost that up and you can get it, in this example, from 3 times to 5 times, I'd even argue that I see EBITDA multiples more in the 8 to 10 to 12 times EBITDA. So you're really talking about a huge boost to the overall value of the organization if you can, bring that net income, that bottom line up.
Yeah, and we work with a lot, not just in the communication space, but also in like the software as a service space, to fintech and things like that, which you alluded to earlier, Brian. Sometimes they kind of blend the line between the communications and the software as a service. We work with a lot of those. A lot of times, unfortunately, we work with them when they're in either fundraising mode or acquisition mode. And there's an analysis being placed on, hey, are you actually compliant with your sales tax obligations? Or again, if they're in the communications field, the communications tax obligations, especially because there's some regulatory obligations there too that a lot of people don't understand. So we see this a lot, and quite frankly, we see commission models actually being discounted completely. Like so when they're looking at the business, yeah, you've got a managed service business that has recurring revenue, right? And recurring revenue meaning they're existing customer all the time, but it's not subscription revenue, right? So that's what obviously also throws them into EBITDA model versus a revenue multiplier model. But a lot of times what we see is whether it's an acquisition or whatnot, they look at the commissions, and at the so they'll take all the other services and maybe they're doing it 3 times or 5 times EBITDA on those services, but the commissions they almost look as like found money, so to speak. It's not like there's nothing you're doing to consistently get that, so it's like they might give that a one time. So even though your overall business might be even if it's very strong, might be in a 3 to 5 time EBITDA, the commission part of that's not adding to that, right? So they're just calling the commission part almost like a 1-to-1. And so yeah, we see that a lot. And then also it's not just like, hey, because you're increasing your margin, your EBITDA is going up, but it's the ownership of that margin, right? Because if commissions, you don't really own anything. So when you own the relationship because you're the person on that invoice, it's much more valuable. The other thing that I would say is, like, when we talk to a lot of times these folks, they get it and they look at it and go, we absolutely should be going in this direction, but then they kind of get overwhelmed with the day-to-day, right? It's like, okay, this is what I need to do, but my customer over here just called me and I got to run over here. So it's almost like they put it aside. And in my mind, a lot of times it's kind of like, I get that reactionary, kind of action that you have. But like, if you can just say, let me kind of try to park those other distractions for a little bit, because those distractions are going to pay me today. This is going to pay me a lot tomorrow. Right. So, yeah. And of course, like you said, Brian, that's kind of why we're here, right? Is to try to make it easier.
Yeah, hopefully make it easy. And when you do have that exit, you don't have any of those tax or regulatory issues, because I'm sure we'll talk about that more in our next webinar. But those are real issues that happen, during that exit, is the identification of those gaps. But yeah, it's a little bit of the cart before the horse. But yes, I think the bottom line is there's significant long-term value play here for anyone that wants to get into the space.
So I guess like we've touched on a couple of times, the agent model is a good way to start off. We encourage service providers that want to have these benefits that come with really owning the end customer relationship, having that revenue on their books, to consider that transition to the white label provider model. Typically, what we see, what it looks like is starting off in the agent world, maybe with some limited brand control, but easy way to enter the space. And then transitioning into the white label space, picking the right partner. We'll probably go into some of this stuff on our part 2 here, but we've got partners that really have a out-of-the-box type of solution for you, where they figured out the platform, they figured out the infrastructure, they figured out even tax and compliance in some cases, and it's really a matter of signing up with them and really working with them to guide this service rebrand from transitioning to an agent model to that white label model. And then we've got other partners as well that will kind of let you figure it out yourself and be more of a do-it-yourself DIY type of approach, which is fine as well. We typically see higher margins in that approach, and again, we've got our solutions here to help make that easy. And really, at the end of the day, with that white label model, you have that full customer ownership. So we're not saying that the agent model isn't a good starting point, but if you're really serious about this space and about growing your communications practice, transitioning to that white label model is definitely something worth exploring, at least. And we've got partners and obviously our solutions as well to help make that as easy as possible. I think this slide kind of summarizes all the different things that we've talked about.
Yeah, we kind of get ahead of ourselves and keep talking, and
we get excited when we talk about this
that come up later. That's all good.
So maybe we jump right to this. I know we've got a case study here, or a real world example, Usman, that you can talk to us about a little bit.
Yeah, this was interesting. AltaWorks is one of our partners, one of our good partners that really helps service providers get into this world. And they had a very cool case study where, one of their partners on a 600-seat deal only saw $15,000 in commissions, because the provider that they were working with had a cap on the amount of commission that they could actually get. As a white label provider on that same single deal, the partner could have gotten over $160,000 in ARR. And then when you look at that from a business valuation profit point of view, that would have made them close to 6 figures in annual profit and added roughly over $300,000 in business value as well. That's just one sort of example. Again, I've been speaking to MSPs for over 6 years, and I've heard this story countless times over and over again, where really at the end of the day, from a commission agent type of model, you're only getting a small piece of the pie there. Whereas in that white label space, not only are you making a lot more profit, the profit alone, had they done the white label approach here, would have been so much higher. But then when you look at it from a business value point of view, growing that equity, it would have been a huge impact. So really, the line at the bottom, grow your business, not your commissions. In an area like Brian and Brent touched on, where MSP valuations are so closely tied to recurring revenue and having those full stack services, having that cash flow, transitioning to that white label space makes a lot of sense. And this is just one of many case studies to highlight that point.
Yeah, and Kate, I think we've got maybe a poll to pull up here, and then we can get to some questions as we kind of wrap up. But one question that I had in general, and I think it's probably applicable to the audience. Do you guys, either of you, see kind of a breaking point or a tipping point might be the better way to describe it, in terms of, hey, I'm an MSP, I've got X number of customers, I've got Y amount of revenue currently. Is there a point where it makes sense to really explore this, or could it be even someone that has just a couple of clients? You see any kind of tipping point or metrics on that?
I'll kind of take a stab at it. I wouldn't call it a tipping point or metrics. It's more of a mindset, right? So whether you're small now or you have a lot of customers now, it's really just about like, okay, is my mindset that I'm going to add a lot of customers and have a large growth mode. If you're in that mindset, then it really doesn't matter where you are as a size today. It does change kind of your process, especially as Brian, around that compliance, right? And it also it changes potentially kind of the steps. But the great thing, and Usman alluded to it in the other slide, and then with that case study, is that there's just a ton of people out there. Like, if you want to be in that growth mindset, you want to grow this, regardless of what size you're at today, there's someone who's willing to put some resources behind you to help you do that. AT&T's got great programs, T-Mobile's got great programs, AltaWorks have great programs. So, and I haven't seen any of them honestly like shun somebody away because they're too small. It's really all just kind of about like where you're going. Now, yeah, if you're small and it's a lifestyle business and you don't care, and then yeah, that's probably, this might be too much for you to kind of take on, because you're just personally not invested in that. But if you're in a growth mindset, regardless of where you are today, I think that's more I don't know, Usman, would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the benefit for that MSP that already has clients that they're managing their networks, their IT services, is typically, even if you've only got a handful of clients that initially approach you for communication services, once you get into this space, the marketing that to the rest of your clients is very easy. We typically see them grow very, very quickly as well. So, I've worked with MSPs that are just starting off with 1 or 2 clients, and by the end of the year, they've got 50, 60 clients, on that service all of a sudden. So there's a lot of opportunity for both small and larger MSPs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we did have one other question from the audience before we kind of wrap up here. But if I were interested in launching a new telecom service like this, so I'm an MSP, I've made the decision, hey, you guys convinced me, value, recurring revenue, cool, I want to do this. How much time is it going to take me to get this process set up where I can now actually start delivering a service?
Yeah, I hate to use that as a teaser for our next webinar, but that's kind of what we're getting into in the next phase of the presentations, is kind of what to expect, the timing, who to lean on, sort of things like that. So I hate to make it a cliffhanger, but that's where we're going.
Well, there you go. So that's great. That's the perfect lead into the wrap up here, and the second webinar that's coming up. And of course, my screen is now blank. It's coming up on March the 19th. So I think that's a week from today. That'll be part 2, as Brent described. It's, now I've made that decision. What are my next steps? getting that billing provider established, set up, establishing that tax calculation capability, getting all of your tax registrations in place. That'll be a really, I don't want to say a deep dive, but it'll be a good dive to at least kind of, I think, make that an easier thing to manage and an easier process to get into. So hope you join us for that. Appreciate your all's time here this afternoon and look forward to speaking with you next week. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.